The night that I pulled the leech off of Sophie's eye, we had just spent the entire day unsuccessfully capturing a single pitta.
The wonderful things about doing fieldwork in Borneo is the way that the leeches decorate our clothing.
I distinctly remember walking into Professor Winkler's lab in the fall of 2011 and remember his question as I sat down to talk to him about the usual semester plans. He said, "Sophie, are you ready for an adventure?" And I had no idea what he was talking about at that point, but I said yes.
Wink, which is what we call Dr. Winkler, what he said was, we're going to go to Borneo next summer and you guys, the undergraduates, are going to plan this expedition and go on it. That was a dream come true to hear that type of thing just a few weeks after getting to college.
I had heard of Borneo beforehand, but I couldn't necessarily point it in a map. I didn't know too much about it at all.
Borneo was my first experience in field ornithology. That was my first time actually going out into the field, focused on birds, trying to make sense of everything.
I decided I wanted to go to Borneo because it seemed like a really good opportunity to discover for myself if I really wanted to be a research scientist or not.
In 2012, a group of students and graduate students and advisors went to Tawau Hills Park to begin this Borneo expedition and just start figuring out what was there and how to do work there. And then several months later, in 2013, we went back for a second trip to follow up on the initial work and take some other students out into the field and learn more about the birds that were out there.
A lot of research these days is very hypothesis-driven, but you can't make a hypothesis about something you don't know anything about. The first step of the scientific method that you learn in first grade is observe, and then you can ask a question and make a hypothesis and do an experiment on it. We were going to Borneo to make these observations so that in the future we can ask a question about the comparative natural history of these species.
The two species that we were really interested in and that are really common at this particular park, but not necessarily easy to see and find, are black-headed pittas and black and yellow broadbills.
We chose the Old World Suboscines, which are a relatively poorly known group of birds, and they're as spectacular as they are poorly known.
The pitta is a forest understory dweller. They hop everywhere. They don't fly very often, and so to find and follow them, you're scurrying around the forest floor. The other species, black and yellow broadbills, are up at the top of the canopy, loud and vocal, easy to hear, and incredibly difficult to see. So these two really hard to find and follow, but yet very common birds were really on opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of fieldwork strategies.
Exploratory science is how we got to hypothesis-driven science. And even though it sort of seems like these days that we know a whole lot about a lot of things, there's still a lot of exploratory research that needs to be done.
As a group, we knew we had a limited amount of time, and we wanted to just collect as much information of how the birds spend their time and how they do what they do.
One of the really neat things about having undergraduates is that you have these people who are going to be the best and brightest in their field later on, but right now they're building up all of the skills that they need. So it's kind of just great to go out with these incredibly brilliant young people who haven't gone nest searching before, who don't have experience catching birds yet or processing them.
I think the main way my experience in Borneo affected me was it made me into a really hard worker. I had to realize, like, this is what a field season is. You buckle down, you work all day, you work every day, and you just pound it out.
A day in the life of a Borneo researcher. You get to wake up to this beautiful chorus of frogs, and then you put on your field pants that haven't been washed in 2 months, and they're caked with mud. Say that you want to record a pitta that day. You bring microphone, parabola, and you bring water and a GPS. To find a black-headed pitta, you often have to wait a while for it to start vocalizing. It will always move away from you once you get close to it because it senses your presence. A typical day can last from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. following one pitta throughout the forest. Just hours of waiting in the green, leafy jungle in the midst of this incredible soundscape of insects.
The rainforest understory is extremely dark. You don't get a whole lot of sunlight penetrating through, and so a lot of birds seem drab even if they're colorful, because there's just not a lot of light. But for some reason, pittas have a way of making this bright plumage shine in the absence of light.
It's very hard to capture very clear, crisp pictures of birds. One morning I was to go out and try and get video of a pitta.
Kaylee and I had both sort of gone in at different times and from different directions to his territory.
When I went into the territory, he was already singing. And then I heard this other pitta.
And I finally start hearing in the distance what sounds like 1 or 2 pittas calling. Okay, so I think I've got 2 pittas in here, and that one right there really sounds like the male, because I know he's got that dip, but that one right there, I mean, that must be his female, must be the mate. And finally, after making some nice recordings of all this singing, I pop around the bend, and there's Kaylee.
We had this camera setup that we referred to as the 500. And the 500 is a 500 millimeter lens, so it's about that long. And you can take really excellent videos with it. If you can get this gigantic rig pointed in the right direction and focused and have all the settings right before the bird flies away. I saw like a flutter of movement. I quickly just grabbed the camera, just like adjusted it a little bit because it was sort of already pointed in the right direction, and fiddled with the settings. And there in the middle of the screen was this beautiful blue-banded pitta, which I had never even seen before. My hands were shaking and I pressed record. It sang twice, it picked up a beetle off the ground, and then it flew away.
I realized there are still opportunities to be a naturalist, like the naturalists of the 1800s, and go out and study the behavior and the everyday lives of birds. But the advantage of doing it now is that we're adding to the body of knowledge with present-day technology, with amazing digital cameras and recording equipment. I think that's one of the really great things about these expeditions.
This sort of more open-ended, more observation-based type of science was able to allow us to have an experience where we were able to practice planning for a research expedition and carrying it out and practicing field skills that are going to be valuable to us in our future careers as biologists or even educators.
What's been fantastic now that the trip is done is that I was really kind of one of the teachers when we were there, but now that we're all trying to write papers together, the students are really taking a lead. It's been really, really great for me. I am now as much of a student as any of them were on the trip.
So I went on the trip wondering if I wanted to be a scientist. I'd put a lot of energy in wanting to be a scientist and didn't really know. Going to Borneo solidified that for me. It was super fun, and I want to do it again, and I want to be in the field as a scientist.
We were hiking up Mount Lucia, and we came to the helipad where the helicopter lands, and as we were standing there, this beautiful song suddenly erupted from a tree. And we were all transfixed because it was one of the most lovely melodies I've ever heard. And we never saw the bird. There were two of them making this really haunting melody. Student advisor Julian Kapoor recorded it, and I go to the Macaulay Library and listen to it every so often, and I get transported back to that time.